Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Pivoting to Web3. And today I have an exciting guest. I'm so glad he's taken the time to be with us. And his name is Sani Abdul-Jabbar. And Mr. Sani Abdul-Jabbar has quite an extensive background on Web3. And this is going to be a nice change for me because I'm going to ask him some questions I haven't been able to ask anyone else. But I would like him to introduce himself rather than because I think everyone gives a better introduction of who they want the world to know they are. So, Mr. Abdul, how can you introduce yourself to us in a manner that is just going to want us to hang on every word?
I'll try. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Thanks for inviting me. Glad to be here. As I said, my name is Sani Abdul-Jabbar. My background is primarily in tech, but as an entrepreneur, as somebody who is in the emerging tech space, I have had the opportunity to work and study across many different industries, many different verticals, from consumer to business to industry to you name it, government, all that kind of stuff. And the company VezTek that I founded in 2006, it is an emerging tech company. And as you very well know, the definition of the word emerging tech, it changes very frequently.
Mhm.
It used to be 3 to 5 years pivot. Now it's 14, 16 months max, if that, in the past COVID days, in the post-COVID days. So that's what we do. Currently, we are very much focused at artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, and all related technologies. That's about 90% of our work. And I am very much concerned about how we are evolving and building some of the emerging technologies. And I have presented a framework to deal with the scary part of AI evolution that's coming down the pike, but we'll talk more about it.
Well, before you go into the scary part, I'm curious to know what motivated you to start the company? How did you really decide that I'm going to do this? I'm going to start the company, all hands on deck? How did you get there?
So uh, many years ago, when I finished my business program, we had a class in the very last semesters called business strategy. And business strategy, people who've been through, you included,
Mhm.
through the MBA program. Business strategy is basically, it's the conclusion, it's the big finale, the last hurrah before you leave the business school. That's where
Mhm.
all your knowledge of 2 years, 3 years come together. So in that class, I asked my professor, I said, what's my purpose as a business leader? And he said, your purpose is to maximize shareholder value. I said, by any means necessary? He said, yes, by any means necessary. So I left business school with that kind of mindset and worked in large corporations. And in the beginning, my job was process optimization. And as you know, in process optimization, we go through processes and we find places where we can cut roles and jobs and take out people and save money. So it's
Yeah, that's really
really,
the bottom line of it,
sorry?
That is the bottom line of it,
That's
take
the
out
bottom line.
people.
That's the bottom line. So in the middle of all that, I visited my grandmother, and she asked me, she said, what do you do for work? I told her, process optimization. When I'm done with a company doing process optimization, each person can do the job of 3 people. So I'm that good. And she said, oh, so your job is to take away people's bread and butter. So I said, love you too, grandmother. Came back from the holidays and started looking for ways to not kill opportunities, but create opportunities.
Mhm.
Tech was something that I was always interested in. US was still reeling out of the 2000 .com bubble. There was need in the marketplace, and for tech. And with my international connections, I was able to get on the bandwagon of outsourcing. So that's kind of my passion, the opportunity, the supply line, all those things came together, and that turned into a tech company, an emerging tech company.
So with that emerging tech company, there are some areas that you are happy with, and what are they, and how have they impacted society before we get into the scary?
What I like about emerging tech is that it's constantly changing. If you don't like something, you can easily say, I'm going to change it tomorrow, or I'm going to be part of a change at least.
Mm-hmm.
So it's never the same. What we started doing back in the day, it was just building simple websites. It was nothing, too complicated. Then we got into ERP systems. We got into mobile apps. We launched over 600 mobile applications with our client partners. Then came along blockchain and all sorts of technologies. Nothing lasted too long. And so if I'm not happy, at one point we were building games.
Mm-hmm.
And when my first son was born, I started thinking, I'm building games which are designed to be addictive. So I'm not happy with that mindset. I don't want to build games. I don't want to create something that's going to become addictive for my child down the road. I stopped building games. There are other things that can be done in the emerging tech space. So it's the change and the speed of change that excites me, because we are at the cutting edge of everything.
So with that said, being on the cutting edge and some of the impacts that you have seen and you've been happy with, what specifically can you share with our listeners so they really have a really good idea, or can you paint a picture for us of what it was and what it did that really made it full circle or brought a revolutionized impact or outcome to society? Is there anything that you could share with us more specifically in any of the
Um,
projects or some of the blockchain specifics or the security of it, the trust verified? What was it about the blockchain, or where did you utilize some of the technologies? Because some of the listeners, pivoting to Web3, I have really tried to not get too technical in some areas, and then sometimes I have been, but I'm trying to use this as an education platform as well. Because for me, I came out of retirement and I had to really do some investigation. I went back to school. I wanted to learn more. And it was really the social impact that I saw on the positive side that I felt people needed to understand, learn, and grow and share. And with that said, to me, being part of the Intel era back in the 70s and 80s and coming into the 90s, I didn't know what that was. And I didn't want that to happen to anybody else now in the Web3 era. So we've got people that listen and they really know what's going on. I've been told in some of my emails and feedback, but there's others that are really learning a lot. So I am hoping that you will give us something that you guys have been on demand with and participated in that really made a difference in either underserved population, underprivileged, or in fintech, DeFi, or identity, banking, non-banking. What can you share with us a little bit more specifically? Is that okay?
no, absolutely. When it comes to specifics, I have to think my NDA contractual obligations to my clients,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
But I
I
will
get
try to
that.
share
So
as much as I can.
as you can, a little bit. I understand if
So
you can't.
yeah, I will try my best. So first of all, when blockchain came onto the picture because of Bitcoin, for most people,
Mm-hmm.
or at least for most people who are not in the tech world. So blockchain became sort of mainstream conversation a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, and for an average person, it was hard to understand what does blockchain do that you cannot do without blockchain.
Yeah, that's what we
Eh,
want to know.
Right. And we would talk about privacy, we would talk about decentralization, we would talk about data ownership. An average person is like, I don't care. Why do I need all this? And I would give them an example. Well, you watch Netflix. Netflix uses parts of it use blockchain technology. And they're like, I don't care. My show plays. I watch it. I like it. So what difference it makes for me? And it was hard to explain outside the tech circles. And at one point, I had this realization that we are not looking at the full picture. So if you think of Web3 as three-piece puzzle, the first is collection of data, then
Mm-hmm.
storage of data, then analysis and finding actionable insights in that data. So blockchain sits in the middle. If you look at just that storage, blockchain is storage. It's a secure database. Big
Mm-hmm.
deal, right? That sits in the middle. But unless we look at the full picture, it's hard to explain. So what we do now when I explain this, I say, well, let's start at the data collection stage. We are collecting data from humans. We're collecting data from Internet of Things devices, sensors, all sorts of stuff. The data then comes into a central storage system where we need to make sure this data is secure. And if it belongs to you, it's your data, no one else owns it, no one else can abuse it, use it against you or for their own purposes, whatever that might be.
Right.
Even if it's as simple as targeting you with certain ads, you don't want to be targeted. So you own the data. And then the third step is looking at that data in an aggregate format and then analyzing it and finding patterns, finding actionable insights out of that data. And now the picture is complete and you can do something with that data. So in the blockchain, what did we do? For example, a lot of the work that we did in blockchain space was some of the larger projects were, well, there's this big blockchain, Ethereum, and we started this new blockchain, make our new blockchain do everything that big blockchain does. So it was basically copying features across. And copying is not copy paste. You have to program and all that.
Right.
But a lot of that was a successful blockchain does X. Our new blockchain doesn't do that. Make it do that. Or make blockchains talk to each other. So a lot of foundational work was done at that stage. And that's majority of our work over the last couple of years.
So do you basically do interoperability? You get things to operate and talk with each other?
Precisely.
And is that more where your business and your tech protocols come from in regards to the development for any clients that you have?
That's one of the areas that we cover.
Okay.
Right. So that's one of the things. In terms of platforms, we had a client, I'll share this project with you because as a case study, client of ours in the apparel industry, and apparel is one of the top, or fashion industry is the top polluters in the world, up there with the oil industry and others. So the question was, how do we differentiate our product from others and show that our carbon footprint is smaller than other companies' carbon footprints, competitors' carbon footprint? So keep in mind the three pieces of the puzzle that I mentioned earlier, right? So this company, it's a English company out of UK. They get their raw materials from Latin America. Their production is in North America, Mexico primarily, and then the final customers are in Europe and UK. So we created a platform that looks at their carbon footprint from the farms where cotton is being produced in Brazil. We start there. And there are individuals who are entering data into the system, and there are IoT devices that are being used. Cryptocurrency is part of the equation. We use a cryptocurrency system to penalize, to either reward or penalize the users of this system, mostly reward. So you start collecting the carbon footprint from the cradle, where the raw materials are coming from. And you apply that all the way till the product ends up in stores, retail stores in Europe, and even end of life part of it. And we came up with a numeric number called green score. It's something that we, along with our client, we conceptualized, we developed. Blockchain was the storage part of it. The first part was data collection through IoT devices and individuals, and then the blockchain was the storage part of all that. Right. And then the actionable insights at the end was the green score. And then based on that, our client, the apparel company, they were able to then determine whether they want to work with, farmer X or farmer Y based on their carbon footprint. So it's a and also for a customer buying, say, a T-shirt, they can see green score between few different products of the same company, and they can make a more informed decision. The company is now offering the same platform to their competitors in the market. And that's the interesting part. I find it interesting because Web3 is a lot about communities. So yes, they're showing their green score of one white shirt versus another white shirt. Like, how are you going to determine like what to pick? It's still the same company. But now if you have multiple companies, multiple apparel manufacturers on the same platform, your value goes through the roof. Now you actually have apples to apples across different brands. And some producers like it, some don't. But that's one of the projects.
Well, there's a lot of change going on in the sectors and in the
Mhm.
industries. So I'm curious to know, and I'm sure everyone listening to was interested in knowing. Let's talk about the ugly,
Mhm.
the concerns, the AI concerns, and some of the ethics, morals, values. Where do you see this really going? That really concerns you? What keeps you up at night? That weighs very heavily, I think, based on what I've observed and read, that's one of your concerns. Can you express that to us on what it is specifically, um, about this? We've all heard different things that, there's bad actors, there's good actors, just like with anything. But more specifically, your knowledge and your depth and breadth in this area, what is it that we really should be aware of and be on guard about?
Many years ago, I was 4 or 5 years ago, I had a chance to review a product, a military grade product, which looked like a small drone that kids play. You must have seen kids playing with little drones.
Mm-hmm.
And this drone was actually a gun. And this drone is programmed to identify people based on their looks, their complexion, their ethnicity, their location, their like all sorts of demographic data. That was the first time when I really felt that AI can be problematic. And it brought back all the Terminator scenarios that used to be, one of my most favorite movies growing up, the very first one that came out, I think, in '84. Um, it brought back all those scenarios. Today, yes, it's in our control. Yes, we are using it for any purposes we want. And I'm using an extreme case scenario to get my point across right now. During the same year, I think, when I saw that drone, I was visiting, I want to say Taiwan, and I got out of the plane at the airport. It was a connecting flight, and I'm walking out of the airplane, and there's an officer standing outside, and he looks at me and he goes, "Welcome to Taiwan, Mr. Sani." I'm like, "How do you know me?"
Mm.
And he hadn't seen my ID. He hasn't seen anything.
So the
Um,
cameras.
cameras. And I'm thinking, are we what are we creating? Are we creating a cage that we cannot escape? Everyone can be recognized anywhere, not that I have to hide anyway, but still privacy. I see it as a basic human right. So those were some of the things that triggered this thought in my mind. What if AI goes crazy and the Terminator-like scenarios come true, and
Hmm.
that's the end of human race? And as a parent, I'm thinking, well, probably it's not going to happen in my lifetime, but my kids are going to grow in this society and they have to deal with all this stuff. So what can be done? So I started asking question, what can be done what can be done today so that AI won't go, cuckoo bananas down the road and not take over the world? It sounds like a science fiction scenario, but what we have seen as in the tech field over the last 5 to 10 years, it's not too far fetched anymore. The Terminator scenario, it's not too far fetched. So I started asking question, what is it that can be done today to avoid that scenario? I asked
Mm-hmm.
that question to technologists. I asked that question to philosophers, clergy, social sciences people, like all sorts of people, anybody who would listen. I would ask this question: is there anything you can think of today that can be done to avoid that
Mm-hmm.
future? There was this gentleman, yeah, from, I think his background is in social sciences. He asked me, he said, if you don't want your kids to do stupid things 20 years from today, what can you do today? I said, well, you teach them good values. And he said, that's the answer to your question. If you don't want AI to do stupid things 20 years from today, teach it good values. And so I started looking into that. Now, AI, I'm sure you and many of your listeners know, the way you train AI, it's very similar to how we train a child. We expose them to different situations, different scenarios. Sometimes we do direct data entry, as in, hey, kid, don't do this, don't
Mm-hmm.
do that. Or we just let them, experience different situations and learn from that. So that's how AI is trained, as you know. You feed tons of data to AI, and then it learns from that. Common example, ChatGPT. ChatGPT has been fed all sorts of data, and it's every time you use it, that data is being fed to it for training. Now, if that data is not, if that data has biases in it, if it's flawed, that's what it's going to teach to the AI. If the data says, don't give, you're making mortgage decisions, for example. If it says, well, in the last 50 years, we didn't approve very many people for mortgage applications who look like this or who have this kind of ethnic background. Or when it came to medical diagnosis, we did not diagnose certain diseases in certain races, even if the chance was that they might have the disease, because we've sort of guessed that they may or may not be able to afford the treatment or whatever, political reasons, religious
Yeah,
reasons,
I
whatever
got
those
you.
reasons
I
were.
hear you.
You get the point, right?
I get the point.
All that goes into the data. And that data gets fed to AI. And now AI is going to think that's the right way of doing things. And the AI is going to just keep doing that stuff over and over. A bad example of that, Tesla cars. They have a problem called phantom braking. Phantom braking means you're driving the car, it's on auto drive. Actually, not necessarily on auto drive, you're just driving auto or manual. And all of a sudden, it just stops in the middle of the street. And that's why in the early days, many, many Tesla cars, they got rear-ended. And the question was,
Okay.
why is it happening? Because few Tesla cars in some situations experience that if a vehicle is coming towards you, chances are it's going to quickly come in front of you. Therefore, you should quickly stop.
Oh.
But where's the fine line between you don't need to quickly stop, you can keep rolling, keep going. But the cars made that assumption, and then they fed that data to the entire fleet of millions of Tesla cars. And now millions of Tesla cars are making the same mistake. So that small issue, it became big very quickly within a matter of days and months. I personally firsthand experienced that phantom braking a few times, actually. Didn't get hit from behind, but at least I experienced the phantom braking. So what do you do in that situation when bad data get fed to AI and then it does something bad based on that? What you do is you have to make sure the data is clean. And that's why data hygiene is becoming a very much in demand skill. Your listeners who might be looking for career choices, data hygiene is a big one. And it's going to remain a big one for a while. What can we do, you and I, on day-to-day basis? Anyone who is making decisions in any organization, in any capacity, that's today's decisions, tomorrow's AI training data.
Okay.
So a decision that I take today in an organization, in my company, for example, it's not just a decision for today that's going to impact one person. It can be a decision that's going to impact for people in many different places and for many years to come that I can't even imagine. Right? So that's one thing, being more mindful, feeling that responsibility that my decision today in my organizational role primarily, it's not just for that moment, for that person that I'm making decision about or for one situation, it is going to get amplified over time. That's one. And the other thought that this gentleman brought to my mind, the social scientist that I mentioned earlier, he said, why is it that most of us don't wake up in the morning and plan world domination or plan, hurting the neighbor or taking advantage of other people? Why is that? And the reason for that, he said, is the human values that are sort of embedded in us, the kindness, the compassion, empathy. Some of us are more aware of those values. Others, they may or may not be aware, but it's in us. It's in our DNA. That's how most of us are raised. And if we don't teach those human values to AI, then we have a problem. Yesterday, I had a conversation with a very successful psychiatrist who's been teaching this idea of compassion and empathy and kindness for human relationships. And when I brought up this thing that we need to teach kindness and empathy to AI, and he's like, absolutely, absolutely. He jumped on the idea. He's like, I've been thinking how it can be done. It can be done because all we're doing is data. It's feeding the data. That behavior, it's patterns that you can teach the machine.
So is that basically going to include, I know someone else that's in AI that does a lot of emotional AI.
Mm-hmm.
And she does a lot with the images, but plays with it in such a way where it totally turns into emotional AI. So the emotions, the values, and all those sets of information. Who's feeding that information now today? How did we get here? Some of us ask that, I'm going to ask it out loud. who's putting in all that data? Is it anybody putting it in, or is a team of people that's controlled, or how
Mhm.
is the information, or how did the start of the information get into AI? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
For a regular person, how did this all start? Who's putting in that information?
Well, that depends who is building a specific piece of AI, right? I use a custom GPT, a custom created piece of AI that I'm personally training based on my previous writings and speaking engagements and books and things like that. It doesn't look at anything outside, only at the content that I have created over the last 10 plus years,
Mhm.
right? So that data, so that's almost like my AI version. Now I can
Okay.
say, write an email from me to Donna, say thank you. And
Mhm.
it's going to write an email in my tone, my voice, my style, my
Mhm.
vocabulary, all of that. And it will send an email to you, like end to end. So that's one way of doing things. Another way is special purpose. So this is a special purpose AI. At a corporate scale, special purpose AI would be a large auto manufacturer. They gave us a project quite a few years ago now. They wanted to look at YouTube videos of their cars that users had uploaded, millions of them, and highlight is the videos which had a specific feature. And the feature was you sort of wave your foot under the back of your car, and the hood
Mhm.
and the trunk opens. You don't have
I
to click.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, find those videos with this particular feature, and then highlight those videos, show those to people that we need to target with our ads, and then show them the phone number of a local car dealer where this user can go and buy. So based on your location, it will show you the local
Mhm.
dealer, not just anywhere. So in that case, who uploaded the data? Well, we uploaded the data, but where the data came from the users and owners of those vehicles who had already uploaded those videos on YouTube. Google is using their own data set to train. I'm assuming that they would use their own data set because they probably have the largest data set in the country.
Mhm. Mhm.
Had a conversation with Microsoft recently. They partner with their specific clients as sort of as what would you call them? Like for pilot projects, and
Mhm.
use their specific data, companies' data, to train their software, and then they would offer the same software to other companies in the same industry. So it depends on your strategy, depends who is building the AI. It can go from you personally uploading your own data, as in my example that I
Mhm.
shared with you of my writings,
Mhm.
to data from other users who are uploading stuff online, or corporate data, industry data. So it depends who is doing it.
So with that said, how do you see the world shaping with everything that's taking place right now? Everybody's not being very kind to each other. And we've talked about the ethics, we've talked about the morals, and then you have consultants, coaches, authors, entrepreneurs, even brands, corporate brands. They're really trying to do the right thing. Um, for those that are on the page of being kind and trying to do the right thing, what do you recommend? What tools should people be looking at, or what do you suggest as part of the resources that those that are listening who are business owners and trying to keep up on what's happening or retooling in their employment? With your background, what should people be really looking at, or what tools or recommendations can you suggest? It's kind of broad, but what do you find most important? If there's three top things or two things that you find most important that you could share, so everybody can keep up on what's going on, or what to do, or how to do it, or how to get in the middle of this mix, because AI is not going away.
Yes.
And I think presenting some tools or strategies in today's new world, because it is turning into a whole new world and it's happening so fast. What do you think? If you were out there and not in the seat you're in, because you're in a good seat. So if you weren't in that seat, what do you think everybody need to be doing? What would you be doing? Maybe that's the question. And what would you
Mhm.
be doing if you were everybody else?
Well, it's the same. It's not a whole lot different than what we've been doing, what we have been doing in the past. If you want to be a kind person, if you want to be a kind boss, a kind leader, a more conscious leader, what's the first thing that we are required to do? Listening, observing. No one is, in most scenarios, your employees, your teammates, they're not going to give you a list of things, how they want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there is a universal level of expectation. We are courteous to each other, we're kind to each other, things like that. But then when we are in decision-making positions in companies, what would motivate my teammate or my staff? Is it money? Is it time off? Is it flexible working hours? Is it work from home? All that kind of stuff. Is it title? Is it bigger office? So it all boils down to listening and observing and asking the right questions. I advocate that AI should be seen as not Donna versus AI, but Donna plus AI. It should be seen as something that enhances our ability, integrates with our abilities, enhances it so that we can do the same things better. It's not like we have to do a whole lot new stuff. So, going with that theme, if I wanted to find out if my employees are happy or not, in the past, I had to either observe or ask. Now we can use AI tools to analyze their conversations or the interviews or their written content and look for patterns and word choices that would give you an idea of person's mental state. If you see that one of your employee is showing signs of stress, overstress, or signs of burnout, now you don't have to wait for this employee to come and tell you that I'm experiencing burnout. You can actually extract that from their communication using these AI tools, and you can take steps to provide them what they might need. So that's one way. How people react to your statements. In the past, we had to just observe and be and then try to figure out if the person is excited or happy or angry, the way we the way we communicate with them and the words we choose. Now, using AI tools, you can actually sort of the AI tools can flag different emotions in that person's responses, written or spoken.
Like in Zoom or some of the other platforms, but the insights and
Insights.
everything
Yeah.
else, for those of you out there that haven't done that lately, yes, be careful when you get on a platform. It's going to tell you what's going on inside your head and how you're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tool. And like any other tool, it depends on us, how we use it, for good or bad, for good intention, bad intention. I can use the same tool to manipulate people if I wanted to, right? If I was an evil person. But if I am not trying to do that, I can, make other people's life easier. Now, the whole fear that artificial general AI is going to take over the world, I don't see that happening anytime soon. And some people argue ever. So no need to worry too much about that. Right now, the question is, how am I going to treat you with these new powers that are given to me, the AI powers?
Mm-hmm.
How we are treating each other. I'm getting, just one final comment. Our company has been target of a scam, specifically in Canada. Someone is using our name to say that, oh, VezTek is hiring, come on WhatsApp and deposit this much money in this online account, and you'll get
Oh
triple your
my
money back.
goodness.
Right. And we have identified about 200 people so far who fell victim to it. We're working with them to inform the local law enforcement over there. In the past, those Nigerian prince scams, you must have seen those emails.
Seen
You
them,
could look
heard
at
them.
the email, right? You could look at the email and you could get a sense that it's not written by somebody who is in the US or in North America,
Right.
English.
Right.
Now you look at these messages, perfectly written, better than you and I can write manually. And they
It's
take
true.
and there's WhatsApp chat going on, and the person on the other side, quote unquote person, it's not a person, it's a
It's a
chat bot.
bot.
And
It's a
it's
bot.
interacting with a human, taking into account that human's choice of words and emotions and all that, and trying to convince them that they should send money into this bank account so that they get hired and they triple their money. The old scam, give me your money, I'll double it for you. That part is the same, but the tools, how it's being done, is now different. So it depends how we use these tools.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about, but in a different way. I used to be really good at identifying scams, and now I'm starting to see myself, well, I don't know if I should click that link or not click that link. It looks a little real. You got to look at it a lot harder.
Yeah.
So, with everything going on and the governance piece, how do you see that working out. They seem to be really taking their time in some ways and not really sure what to do. And they seem to always miss the bullseye when it comes to technology. What do you think needs to really take place or happen for us to do this in a methodical and the appropriate and professional way that's for the good of society?
Yeah.
And we don't lock it down too much, but we do still put on the brakes where necessary.
I have always advocated mindful regulation during the days of when blockchain was huge. It still is, but the last couple of years, it was everyone was talking about it. I would go to different conferences, and on stage, I would call for mindful regulations, thoughtful regulations, and I would get booed. It wasn't until 2023, earlier this year, that I mentioned the need for regulation in the blockchain industry from a stage in front of a couple hundred people, and I wasn't booed for the first time. So, so people understand that there's a need for it because from the industry perspective, if there is no regulation, government is not going to touch it for their own use if there's no proper rules of engagement in place. Corporations aren't going to touch it because of liability concerns. And with the industry players, when we work on those technologies, again, because the rules aren't clear, a lot of people get taken advantage of because we don't know how to properly interact with each other without those proper rules of engagement in place, i.e., a regulation. Government is a massive ship, and course correction for a massive ship is not easy. I think it falls on us, people in the industry, to advocate a need for regulation, quick change. Yeah, other countries are actually, China specifically, they're moving much faster than us when it comes to evolution of these technologies. So we need to play some catch up there.
I think if until we have the appropriate governance, you're not going to have mass adoption because every area that you want to do smart contracts or mortgages or any type of implementation, then you get the drawback of, but what happens if this happens? And then you get stuck. So everybody's kind of like wondering what to do, when to do it, and until we have some governance. And it doesn't seem to be coming right away. So, well, hopefully, there's some meetings I understand are coming up this year that there'll be some decisions and all the insights take place because I think mass adoption is what's necessary for some of the positive things that can take place in AI and blockchain, which really motivated me to do the podcast because when I started learning about some of these big shippers and people doing things in blockchain or the big box stores pushing back or jumping on board, but the masses don't really know what's going on, it could save them money, improve the product, the efficiencies, the costs, and everything else. It seemed like we're just not really managing the information in a manner that can improve the efficiencies and the cost and all the expenses in the appropriate way that's necessary in society right now. And we have the tools, but we're just not utilizing them. So your book, I want to mention your book a little bit here. In your book, tell us about your book. Yeah. Tell us about your book. How you ended up writing the book. What are you most excited about with it? I don't usually delve that much into the books with people, but with you and all your knowledge and background, tell us about your book. What's going on there? How did you get there?
How did I get there? 2 years ago, I attended a retreat in Arizona and had the good fortune of sitting across the table from Mr. Mark Victor Hansen one morning over breakfast, the chicken
Mm-hmm.
soup gentleman.
Mm-hmm. I know he is.
Yeah, and he asked me, he's like, so he has this strong voice. He's like, so young man, what's your story? So I'm telling him, so I do this and build blockchain and stuff. And he's like, no, that's what you do. What's your story? So I started sharing with him my background a little bit and what I do. And he's like, what concerns you? What matters to you? So that kind of, one topic led to another. And I mentioned the whole idea around concerns around AI that somehow came up. And he's like, why don't you write about it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where it started. He's like, you have to write about it, and don't write for the the tech community because you'd be preaching to the choir. Write for people who are not in the tech community necessarily. So under his supervision then, and under his guidance, I wrote the book in a novel format, in a story format. And the idea that I mentioned earlier, teaching human values to AI, teaching human values to robot, that's what the book is about. There are 5 values and basic stuff: kindness, empathy, compassion, those kind of things. But how do we take that from humans and teach them to AI, and then how AI reacts and how humans and AI work together? That's basically the plot of the story. And this book became a bestseller within the first 3 days from the launch. And that's not a testament to my work as much as it is to the need out there that people are, I feel that people feel a need to receive a message of hope, because most of the AI related messages are messages of doom and gloom.
Yeah, they're scary.
They're scary, right? So people want to know, I think, what can be done today so that we don't end up in that doom and gloom scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the book is all about. It presents a framework in a very easy to follow story format, a framework that you and I, average people, can follow today, create AI or help train AI that tomorrow it doesn't become problematic for us.
Well, that sounds exciting. So hopefully a lot of people will be getting your book. And what was the name of the book again? Tell us.
The name of the book is Makers: A Slender Knowledge. And I'll send you the link later. Maybe you can share it with the
I'll
podcast.
share it. You have a page on the podcast on the website.
Yeah.
People can link there. It's going to also be mentioned. So we're going to get that book moving even further, because I know a lot of people still want to know. I get emails about AI. And what is it that you'd like to share that I didn't get an opportunity to ask? Is there anything that I missed that you want to share with everyone? What are you involved in, or something new coming up? Anything at all?
We didn't talk about how the company VezTek, the company that I founded and I head up, how does that help in this scenario? So I'm saying all these things, that yes, AI and challenges with that and fear of the future. So what we do, we work with other tech companies and software companies, and we help them. We enable them to bring these futuristic technologies in their service portfolio. So they may have been offering traditional technologies until now, and everybody wants to pivot towards AI and wants to pivot towards blockchain. But concern with these technologies is that this is expensive undertaking, that pivoting, either acquiring those skills or hiring resources with those skills. We come in and we give them a framework that they can follow to go from a traditional firm or a software team inside a company, and they can quickly pivot without any upfront cost, like zero cost of acquiring resources or acquiring skills. We provide all that. So that's what VezTek does.
So you have blockchain as a service. Is that the same?
We have blockchain development as a service.
Okay.
Company.
So somebody like me who may have clients that are interested in pivoting, you take care of the onboarding process and you make it very easy where they don't have to have the big expense and all the tech and all the labor and just everything they don't know.
Yes.
It's an expense, but not as big as it could be. And you have the knowledge, the background, the skills to ease that. Are there certain companies or sectors or industries that you do more work with than others, or more contractual work, or just retail, or real estate, investment, banking?
No, well, so a two-part answer to that question. One is our formula is anything that's legal, moral, ethical. We'll do it. That's the basic. And the second, because we have received we have received some interesting project proposals that don't, go through that. Don't pass that litmus test.
NDA, I was like, okay, they got a lot going on here.
Yeah, legal, moral, ethical. I had to create that litmus test. You would think it's obvious, but no, it's not, apparently. The second part is which industries we work with. That depends on which industries attract more investment for certain technologies. And I can tell you right now, it's fintech on the top, healthcare second, entertainment third. These are the top industries by investment. And that drives the type of projects that we do. But it doesn't mean that we don't do other industries, wherever the investment come from.
What was the first one? Did you say fintech?
Fintech, finance, banking,
Okay.
fintech, all of that.
Okay. In the healthcare, there's a big need, of course, in the healthcare side, having been in that industry myself. So I'm hopefully that will take off. But what about the nonprofits? I'm kind of curious, and then we're going to close this up because this is the longest podcast I've done since I could talk to you for a while. You're going to have to come back.
Happy to share a thing or two that I know. Non-for-profit, because, non-for-profit
UNICEF has
funding
done
and
some
investment
foundations and some blockchain, and there's nonprofits in that space, and that's a good place for them to be. But what do you think?
So when any technology becomes as a service, blockchain as a service, AI as a service, then industries that historically tend to have smaller budgets, they can benefit from those technologies. So non-for-profit industry, historically lower budget, smaller budgets, they have access to things like ChatGPT, for example, today, very affordable. And along the same lines, there are many other products that are AI-powered products that are coming on the market every day. I'm actually maintaining a list of those products, and I send that out once a month. So anyone interested in the list, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm sure you'll share the link on the podcast page.
Yes, and they'll also have your page that you filled out. All your links will still be
I did,
available to all the
yes.
listeners.
Yes, I
As
did.
long as people go on that site, they're interested in you, they can see all their links. I will make sure that it's mentioned as well in a lot of the marketing that we do for our guests.
Awesome.
And it's just really been a fabulous conversation with you. But what else you want to share? You got a lot in there.
Yeah.
I
think we are out of time. I can keep going all day.
Yeah, I can keep going too. And that's why I said we really need to wind down. So how can people reach you and connect with you?
The best way to reach me is
LinkedIn?
LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's very
All
simple.
right then.
My LinkedIn is like LinkedIn/Sani. LinkedIn.com/in/Sani, SANI.
All right then. So everybody, you heard it here first. And it's been a pleasure talking to Mr. Sani Abdul-Jabbar. There's a lot of information that we got, and there's some other information there that we may not have been able to tease out today, but I'm sure he's going to be back with us because this is really a lot of information that we can all gain. But thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day, evening, or morning, depending on where you are, and stay tuned to Pivoting to Web3 podcast. Thanks so much, and I look forward to serving you and shaping tomorrow together. Thanks for listening to Pivoting to Web3. At pivotingtoweb3.com, make sure you hit the subscribe button so that it gets to you with every episode that comes out. We have lots of great opportunities, limitations, and downward spirals being revealed by our guests. And thank you in advance for all your reviews and comments. I appreciate you so much. I look forward to serving you in the next week's episode.